Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Birthday.
Hello.
Congratulations, Mazel Tov on 6 years.
Yay. This is so exciting.
Jessica's playing us
This should
out.
happen in every classroom, just like a moment where the teacher's like, everybody make noise. Everybody scream.
It's like my fifth grade classroom again.
Well done. Well done.
ADHD Rewired, episode 320. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter, you can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups, and you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guests are, well, we have a bunch of you. So I think that we're just going to kind of go through and give people an opportunity to talk, because today what we are doing is something that is, it's an ADHD kind of a frenzied celebration. We're celebrating 6 years of podcasting. Have any of you ever done anything for 6 years consistently? I don't know if I have. So this is a pretty cool celebration. We did this at the 50th episode. We did this at the 100th episode. I thought about doing it again at episode 200. I didn't. I thought about doing it again at episode 300. Nope. Then I was like, 6 years. 6 years is a good time to do it. So now we're at like 6 years and like a month and a half or so after it. We are in the midst of connecting virtually, but socially distancing during the coronavirus. So it's wonderful to see everyone here. We have like 5, 10, 15, 20-ish people here on my Zoom screen. So if you would like to just say hello, we'll do I'm going to invite a moment of chaos. I'm going to just unmute everyone for just a split second here. And just when I do, just say hello. Unmute all. Say hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Birthday.
Hello.
Congratulations, Mazel Tov on 6 years.
Oh, thank you. So we have some people who have been on the podcast before and many who have not. So let's go around and just kind of share some stories about what your connection is to ADHD Rewired. Maybe some stories about how you get your ADHD rewired. Talking about community. So I would like to start with someone I think you all probably know fairly well, and that's my dear friend Jessica McCabe, who rolled out of bed and said she put on pants, but we have no evidence of that because we see her from the waist up. Jessica, hello.
Hello. Oh, cool. I'm going first. My meds haven't fully kicked in, FYI. Hi. So I first heard about ADHD Rewired because I was doing this little YouTube channel called How to ADHD, and Eric Tivers reached out and he was so professional and I was so impressed and like knew all the tricks with the audio and everything. And I was so nervous to be on his show, but he was so sweet to me. And that year I went to my very first CHAD conference. And I was glued to Eric Tivers at the hip. Like I followed him everywhere like a little puppy, and he introduced me to everybody and made me feel so welcome. And it was my introduction into the ADHD community, because before then I didn't really know anybody who knew anything about ADHD. I was just Googling and trying to do my best at researching and putting stuff on the internet and hoping that nobody would get mad at me because like I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I was a college dropout. Like I didn't know anything about mental health. I was just trying to figure stuff out on my own and sharing what I learned. And Eric Tivers was the first, ADHD advocate that made me feel like I got to be part of this club. And he introduced me to other people. And since then, he's been an incredible mentor to me. And now, I don't know, now he feels like a peer and it's really cool. And we support each other through, creating stuff. And it's just been, I'm going to cry. It's just been such an incredible experience getting to know him and getting to feel welcome within this community. And he's just taught me so much about time blindness and time blocking and how to actually be productive with this, chaotic rogue brain of mine. It's been such an honor to know you, Eric. It really has.
And the all those feelings are very mutual. I feel that I learned just as much from you. So it's a very, I think, very symbiotic relationship that we have. And I'm very grateful for our friendship and for everything you do for the ADHD community. I mean, Jessica, I think I've told you this. But when I have people register for my coaching groups and I ask, like, how did you hear about the group? The number one referral source by far, doesn't even come close to my podcast, is your channel.
Yeah, because I went to do one episode with Eric and it ended up being 3 episodes because he had so much good stuff to say. But yeah, that's really cool. And just, I can't thank you enough. Like, I can't even express how useful it's been to understand how my brain works. And a lot of that I've learned from you. And I have such a different relationship with my brain now. I don't feel like it's sabotaging me. I don't feel like I have, I have all these goals that I'm trying to do. And then like I sabotage myself and I just get in my own way all the time. I used to feel like I'm my own biggest problem. Right. And now I understand, like, I'm living with an ADHD brain. And so for me personally, the way I conceptualize it is, there's me and there's my ADHD. And sometimes we have to negotiate. Sometimes I'm like, I want to get this done. And my brain's like, I want to go on Wikipedia. And I have to be like, okay, let me set a timer for 15 minutes or, 25 minutes on a good day, like maybe 5 minutes on a bad day, and be like, all right, I'm just going to work for 5 minutes and then my ADHD can play. So one of the coolest things that I've kind of learned is that there are sometimes when I need to be like, okay, I'm in charge. I am going to be productive. My brain can wait. And other times when I need to just let it wander. And that's what I've found, works best for me is I just let my brain wander sometimes because my ADHD is actually pretty cool. Like, it is very creative and interested in everything. I'm super curious. And that curiosity when I'm trying to accomplish something can get in my way, but other times it can be really great. And I don't know. I just think Eric and ADHD Rewired has helped me have a really positive relationship with my brain and with my ADHD.
Just let me ask you one more question here. For you personally, not even as a leader in the community, but personally, how has being part of an ADHD community impacted your ADHD?
Oh, it's game changing. Probably part of it is, I wrote a whole song about this. Like, I feel like I was that fish trying to climb a tree and wondering why I kept ending up back at the bottom, and I kind of sucked at it. And now I feel like I'm in the ocean with other fish learning how to swim. And part of it is I'm being taught how to swim by these other fish because I see how other people are doing it. And I get these strategies from other people. You're one of the huge fish in the sea in this metaphor. But another part of it is just being around other fish. I feel normal. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, of course my kitchen is not perfectly clean. Whose is, right? I am having an easier time not holding myself to neurotypical standards, which is great because accepting my ADHD was something that I didn't have a hard time with. My favorite aunt had ADHD when I was diagnosed. I was like, cool, I joined the cool club. But not holding myself to neurotypical standards was a different matter. I was like, cool, I have ADHD, but also I should keep my house clean and be able to pay bills on time and do this and do that. And now being among other people with ADHD, I'm able to see that, in certain ways, I'm not going to hit those neurotypical standards, but in other ways, I'm part of the, this really curious, creative, generous, amazing, enthusiastic community that works differently. And I work differently too. And I fit in here.
I'm so happy you're here, Jessica.
Me too. I'm going to cry.
That's okay. It's we allow crying on the podcast here. And one other thing that I just want to share with everyone too is that how long have we been doing our weekly meetings? It's been like 2 years about. You and I?
You guys meet every week?
Talking to you, fool.
Oh, you and me?
She wasn't even kidding.
No. Oh my God. I don't even know, but yeah. After I did the closing keynote at Chad a year or two ago, Eric was like, I think I need peer support. And I was like, I'll be your peer. And so since then we talk once a week, when we both remember to, which is not always.
My favorite was so we meet every Thursday, and last Wednesday you sent me a text. We're on in 15 minutes, right? And my response, it's Wednesday. It's wonderful having you as a friend. So thank you so much for being here and for doing everything that you do.
Thanks.
All right. Who would like to share next? All right. Adiola. How's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good. I'd like to thanks for the initial interview that I had last year.
You bet.
And how I came across you was that after my diagnosis and with my ADHD coach, I started listening to your podcast every week for about a year. And I gained more insight into ADHD, besides the other usual with including Jessica and everything, and Dr. Hallowell. It was the fact that you gave me an opportunity midway through my first molecular program to get my story across. This was after losing 330 pounds. But this year, I managed to graduate, understand that I'll be at the end of the month, like end of April. First book is written. I'm looking to get it published.
Wow.
Hopefully. I mean, it will be published and work on the second one. But lastly, is to be more of an advocate of understanding it's okay to be different and to think differently, and help those system instructors by other people's own experiences. That has been a great help too, with your podcast. It's like I'm not the only one who's like this. Even being in a small town where it's very hard to see that it's not just locally, it's essentially everywhere, even though it's a small percentage of the population.
What was it like for you hearing yourself on the podcast? And did you have people maybe reach out to you at all? And
yeah, a lot of people were surprised. Were shocked. Even myself, I had to re-listen to it a couple of times. I actually went through all that. But going through it, all I'm seeing is going through my own muck and everything, personally. But looking back on it, I said, you know what? It validated what I've been through. And if I came across a bit rude or something like that, I want to apologize for that because I thought I would get a bad job. So, I want to apologize publicly. So it really, and even to this day, I still any of your podcasts, I still repost it on my personal Facebook page and a couple of groups locally as well as in Northern Ontario of all your podcasts.
Awesome. Remind everyone, do you remember what episode number it was? Because I don't remember it offhand.
It was last year. You just have to go back into the podcast and everything. So it was, I can't remember myself, but it was just the fact that of all the ADC podcasts, every week I still listen to your podcast. Regardless.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
And it's one of the best ones I've listened to. Even your coaching podcast, your
the
masterminds, everything. Even the personal stories. It's it seems like I'm always getting something differently. It's like, oh, okay, this can apply to me, person. I get everybody's different, but I can still take something to learn from person.
Awesome. And MJ just shared in the chat that it was episode 266. So thank you for looking that up.
Yeah. I'll recommend you anybody. Anybody will listen. That's guaranteed.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's go to, we have, the screen is getting more and more filled and I want to hear more and more people's stories. So who would like to share something next? Natalie.
Hi. Oh my goodness. I haven't spoken yet today. My voice is all crackly. So I started listening to ADHD Rewired. I actually wrote all this down. June 2017, I started listening, which was, I started listening November 2017. June 2017 was when I was diagnosed. And I loved it so much that I signed up for coaching that February. I coached, did the coaching groups, and then I did an admin directly after that. And it really changed my life a lot. And I was able to accept myself, and I started doing planning and all of that. And then I moved, I went to Chad November 2018. And then I moved to Indianapolis from the Detroit area, April 2019. And when I did that, I kind of fell off of it. And I've been trying to plan on and off ever since then. And I kept changing jobs and trying to figure things out. And then just like a month ago or so, I was like, when was the last time you listened to a podcast? And I was like, oh, it's been a while because everything's been so hectic. I've just been listening to music when I drive. And when I drive is the only time I really listen to podcasts. So I was like, okay, well, let's listen again. Oh, hey, let's listen to the 300th episode. And I did that. And that was the one where you were getting interviewed. And which was incredibly inspiring to me because I've been trying to start a YouTube channel and I made a few episodes and then I just stopped. And then you were talking about how for years this podcast was on your to-do list. And I was like, okay, so this isn't ridiculous, like that I haven't touched this in a few months. But then at the end of that episode, you listed off all the people that you were giving thanks to. And now I'm going to cry because, you were listing all the different people you were thankful to, like your production people. And then you were listing literally everybody by name. And I thought that you were going to like make it super short and say thank you to like, oh, thank you to all my people who've admined for me. And oh, thank you to my production staff, but you actually said everybody's name. So you said my name on your podcast while I was driving to work. And I started weeping. I was driving and weeping. I almost pulled over, but I managed to pull myself together enough. I didn't want to be late for work because I still am often late for work. And I was like, this is still a community I'm a part of, even though like I've fallen off the horse a few months. And like, it's stuff that still works for me and it's stuff I still think about. Like, you know, I've been having a rough year, but even with my rough year, I've been so much better at forgiving myself ever since I did your coaching group. And I was like, I should try to start listening to these again. And I've listened only to like 2 more since then in the past month because I haven't been driving. This virus is just great for that. So, but I'm going to try and listen while I do dishes and things and see if I actually can listen while I do dishes. But it means a lot to know that this is a group that you are always a part of no matter what. So I appreciate that. That's my little story.
Thanks, Natalie.
You're welcome.
All right, who would like to share something next? Adri.
Thank you very much. So I decided to become a part of Eric's group, 17.1, I believe, which is not too long ago, last year. And I had been listening to the podcast for a really long time because that's what I do. I listen to lots of things and I read lots of things, and that's what I like to do. But it was really expensive and I had to be like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And I went ahead and I remember you had asked for like a video interview or something. And I was super nervous. And from like the first step, it was identifying like things that I had problems with. You couldn't see it yet. But like, you know, perfectionism, like not being able to send a really short video because I talk a lot. Having to record the video 2 or 3 times. And like, I didn't know it at the time, but was working on things that we were going to work on from the get-go. And it was super scary. And I went into it thinking, I'm going to learn how to do all the things and get all these other strategies that maybe I don't have yet. And, check all the boxes and get better. And that's how I went into things. And then I got there and I met all these wonderful people and I miss them all so much. And it was totally cool. I've gone through life like thinking that I'm different and alone. And then I met all these people who were awesome. And a lot of them were different than me, but they were all alike. They all totally understood. And every single mastermind, I cried. And every single mastermind, I pulled something from because I could relate to that part of their life. And it was really the first time where I felt not alone. And so I thought I was coming in to do like a lot of skills work, life skills work, life, how to do to-do lists to get my shit together. And really that's not what it was, because in order to like get my shit together completely, I really had to realize more of a human connection and realize that I'm good enough in this group. And they taught me that so that I could take that out to, neurotypical group and realize that I'm still good enough. And so I'm not sure I would have been able to do that without being a part of your group. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I really thank you for that and for all that you do here and all that you give us to continue to come together. It's really wonderful and a big part of my life. And I don't always make it to the meetings because now I do have a lot of my shit together and I got places to be. But I try to make it here as often as possible. And it always just makes my day so much better. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about one of Eric's little things, so that I can get that other stuff that's not important in line and working smoothly as well. So
I do have a question. First of all, thank you for saying and sharing all that. I have heard from group members that when they were in group, they sort of like stopped listening to the podcast because they just needed like a day off from me. Was that true for you too?
No.
No, you were.
No.
All right.
I've taken notes during podcast. I usually listen to the podcast more than once. Usually once where I just listen all the way through. The second time, if it really liked it and I really identified with it, then I'll sit down and listen with notes and take notes so that I can implement some of those things if it really identified with me. Like the Roxy Mastermind really identified with me.
Have you ever looked at the show notes pages that we have on for each episode?
I have not. Clearly, I could be saving time there.
What? There's show notes? There are. And they're even time stamped so you can like go check out what was said at what time.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I will look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. I got a few more people who have their hands up. But before we do, I want to say a quick hello to Kirsten Milliken, who just joined us. Hey, Dr. Milliken, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, I am living the dream right now.
I am so thrilled for you, Eric. I know that this marks your 6-year anniversary of doing this podcast. And I, as soon as I saw that message, I thought of us down in Florida and you going around with your little microphone trying to get interviews from people before you even started this podcast. It was so fun. You're awesome.
Are you still doing podcasting at all?
I'm not. Can I do a little, can I tell you what I'm doing?
Oh, please.
It's really exciting.
And if you guys don't know who Kirsten Milliken is, she's been on the podcast a couple of times. She, for a while, was doing Play ADHD, adult play, ADHD, gives prescriptions for play.
I do. So I met this wonderful woman at the last International ADHD conference. Her name is Chris Mitchell, and she was doing a class on play. And of course, everybody thought that maybe it was me doing it. She and I are putting together a program that is launching this week called Would You Want to Live in a World Without ADHD? And it has to do with, if you think about all of the people through history now and in the past that have had ADHD and all the things they've contributed, like, would we want to live in the world without all of those things? It would be pretty bleak. So we're actually putting together a book that we're trying to crowdsource, getting our ADHD community to contribute art and their thoughts, their written words to do it. I don't want to take away from what you guys are doing, but hopefully adding to it. The website's going to be worldwithoutadhd.com. And we need everybody to participate because the more we get, the better.
I love that.
We are going to be also not just using them for a book, but we're going to be taking all of the artwork to the international conference in Dallas this year. So it'll all be exhibited. And then those pieces will also be auctioned off so that they will support the organizations that are supporting the ADHD community.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. So big project. And of course, it's fun.
Awesome.
I appreciate you letting me say that.
You bet. I didn't have much of a choice. You were unmuted and you just kept talking.
I know. You know what? I also want to gush about you too, because you are quite phenomenal. And just seeing the people who are here, in the middle of all this crap, wanting to celebrate your 6 years. I'm glad that I was there from the beginning and that I know you. So thank you for being somebody in my life.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to go next to Sharon, who, and it's just sort of dawned on me that this is actually part of the impetus of this happening is because of Sharon, this 6-year celebration. So Sharon was in one of our coaching groups, and she does leadership coaching, and that is, as for those of you who've been listening for a while, know that was an area of my focus last year. And so after a group, I reached out to her and said, hey, let's, can we work together? It was something like that. So we were working together for a while, and she asked me, wow, so you hit episode 300. How are you going to celebrate? And I was like, I'm going to record episode 301. And Sharon, man, I struggled with answering that question, and, which was very, kind of eye-opening to me in a lot of ways. That was a really hard thing for me to answer, how to sort of honor and celebrate that. So, this is one of the ways that I am celebrating. The other way that I chose to celebrate the 300th episode, I did last week, and that was I bought myself a bottle of scotch that was way too expensive, and it's been worth every sip. So thank you, Sharon. Scotch? It's I'm like, MJ can pronounce it for me.
It's Laphroaig.
Oh. Good scotch.
It's very good scotch.
Good scotch.
I just can't pronounce it. It's got a weird spelling. So Sharon, tell us a little bit of your story here.
So I was diagnosed with ADHD last year, right before my 56th birthday, which was kind of a nice and a weird birthday present. And what it did for me was it put me on this it was like, oh God, I got to learn so much. How do I learn so much? And I actually found Eric through Jessica's videos. And I was just, I was truly binging. Like, how do I get as much information as possible? So now I understand sort of how life has been, why my life has been how it is. And so, and where I've struggled and where I've not. And so when I started listening to the podcast, I was like, wow, there are so many angles of this. Like that, the psychiatrist didn't tell me, there wasn't, people don't know, but you're not a hyperactive little boy. It's sort of, there's so much misinformation. And so then I started listening to the podcast, and it was really, really sort of helped me settle a bit, not take a little bit of the urgency off, as of course medication did as well. And then I did a podcast with you. And I'm trying to think, I think the episode is somewhere in the 270s. And
it's on leadership.
On leadership. And I actually coach quite a few leaders who have ADHD. And I'm also now advising a group of coaches to notice the difference with things that are sometimes showing up with their clients that they may be attributing to Will, and that has absolutely nothing to do with Will, but has to do with ADHD.
And we're talking about willpower, not Will Curb.
Willpower.
Not Will Curb from Hacking Your ADHD.
Yeah. So, it's not understood. And as such, it I think for so many of us, and I think this ties into the concept of celebrating, where, we've had to deal with so much criticism and so much not fitting in and so much, not being able to do something in the same way as others, that with that, what comes for so many people, both on the neuroatypical and the neurotypical, is that there's this distancing from celebrating and honoring what you do and where you do accomplish. And not seeing that as in any way grandiose or undeserved, but to just really acknowledge, like, wow, that's really big, whatever it may be. It could be that you focused on execution for an hour and a half, and that's great. So celebration is really important. I think the advantage of the podcast, and I think this is one of the beautiful things about podcasts, all of us grew up as children being read to in some form, either a lot or a little. And one of the lovely things about podcasts is that it's sort of going back to that place of being read to. We get to sit back and absorb. It's a very, in a way, a passive kind of engagement, but we're actually being cared for. And so there's these wonderful moments I certainly had in my own learning and my connection to your podcast, where in the sea of trying to make change happen, and even I went through your group coaching program, which was fabulous. There's these wonderful things about just being able to sit back and be cared for through somebody else imparting their wisdom, somebody else showing us what their experience is, and sort of telling a story that that I had connection to in sometimes big and little ways, but that I didn't have to work at. I could just absorb. And I think that for me was a really big gift, and still continues to be a big gift.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And Sharon was on episode 277. And as I've gotten, further along in the years in recording this podcast, I don't often listen to my episodes when it comes out. I actually listened to our interview, Sharon, 3 times because I just felt like there's so much that I was learning from it. And I sat there and took notes, even though there were show notes, but it was more of the, just that ability to really pause and reflect, was really valuable for me. So thank you. Thank you so much. And I loved what you had said about, listening to podcasts as kind of being like being taken care of. I, read a story. So, what I want to do briefly is take a quick break. And then when we come back, we have so many more voices, from people who are here celebrating our 6-year, anniversary. So, with that, we will be right back. These are tough times we are going through. We've changed so much in the way that we interact with each other, the way we shop, the way we work, and where we work. Everybody is finding different ways to cope and connect with each other. Here at ADHD Rewired, we have built a virtual community over the years. Our alumni who are former coaching group members join together every day to help each other with adjusting to the new reality of new routines caused by the coronavirus. We've created groups such as an emotional support group, a group for creatives to meet and check in with accountability, daily planning groups, and even a meditation group, all under one virtual roof at ADHD Rewired. If you have been thinking about joining our 10-week intensive video-based coaching and accountability groups, go today to coachingrewired.com and click on the big blue button. Be the first to receive a save the date email and get the first invitation in mid-May. I just set the dates for registration. The first registration event or kickoff event will be on May 28th. The door is open. Come inside ADHD Rewired and learn how to create a new routine during this unpredictable time by joining our coaching and accountability groups.
I decided to join the group because I had been diagnosed with ADHD just over a year before starting. But even before being diagnosed, I had already tried everything. Meditation, yoga, diets, reading so many different books and countless articles on productivity and planning and how to get motivated that I was at the end of my rope. I was beyond exhausted and honestly starting to feel like no one was going to be able to help me. Everything was starting to feel a little hopeless. I'd been listening to Eric's podcast for about a year and I decided, heck, I'm just going to give this a shot. And I am so grateful that I did. I was so skeptical at first because I'd already learned a lot of what was in the course. And I felt pretty sure that this was going to wind up being just another failed experiment. But it didn't take me long to realize that this really was different. Some of the material I had been over before, but this time it was presented in a completely different way, a way that actually worked for me and took into account the way my brain worked. My biggest takeaway was that I'm not alone and I'm not broken. I don't need to be fixed. I'm just different. And the best part is knowing that there are a lot of people out there who are different too. What I didn't expect was that I would get so much more out of this group than just learning how to be more productive. Before this group, I felt like an outsider and a failure. I had spent the last year of my life trying to, quote, fix myself and apologizing for and trying to make up for my ADHD. And now I have found a level of self-acceptance that I didn't think was possible. I found an amazing group of people who have given me so much hope and who will undoubtedly be friends for many, many years to come. This group is like a family. You come here hoping to get a grip on your struggles, and you do pick up a lot of tools that help. But the thing that you really walk away with is a community that sees your struggles, feels your struggles, and loves you anyway. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. If you're thinking about joining this group, thinking that it sounds great, but you just can't afford it, or you're already so busy that you don't have the time, I get it. That was me. I was you. I waited to join the coaching group for the same reasons, and I'm going to tell you right now, I was wrong. The reality is, you can't afford not to.
To get your invitation to our kickoff event, go to coachingrewired.com and click the big blue button. Our coaching groups fill up fast each season, so don't wait. To learn more and to sign up to get invited to our registration event, you must be on our registration invitation list. Go to coachingrewired.com to sign up on that list. That's coachingrewired.com. Hey, Jessica, is your ukulele in tune? Do you want to, if I ask you to sing your fish song in a little while, would you do it?
I can absolutely go find and tune my ukulele. So it'll give me like 20 minutes and I would be happy to.
We're keeping that on the podcast. All right.
I'm going to go look for my ukulele.
Let's go from one Jessica to another. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing really, really good. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to you. And I'm glad that you're doing this and you're celebrating it because you definitely deserve to celebrate. You do a lot for the whole community. And I know we all feel that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, so I was actually diagnosed with ADHD in December of 2018, and I was 28 at the time, and I just turned 30. And I I actually found Eric through the podcast really early on. I was also I have this thing and now I'm going to binge and just learn everything I possibly can. So I go and buy like 10 books and believe it or not, read about 8 of them. So
that's pretty good.
And, thank you. Yeah. And I stumbled across Jessica McCabe too with How to ADHD and was just kind of digging in. And I was in a really bad place when I started listening to Eric's podcast. My life was just really falling apart. And I actually started all the way at the beginning. I had heard like one episode later on. I said, I want to see how this started. So I went all the way back and then just worked my way through. And it really kept me grounded. It was something that helped me feel like there were maybe people that understood me, that got the way my brain worked, and that I wasn't the only one out there with the challenges that I had. And it was, it was inspiring, and it was funny, and it was enjoyable listening to people go off on like unrelated tangents and just get lost sometimes. And, I had been listening for about a year, hearing all of the promos for the coaching group. And I had wanted to see what that would be like, getting to talk to some of these people myself. And it took a while, and I'm so glad I'm just coming out of the coaching group now. So I just finished ARC, and I have to say that it was one of the most profoundly life-changing experiences I've had.
What made it so?
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people can kind of identify with this. As someone who didn't know that I had ADHD most of my life, I got really good at pretending. I got really good at hiding and social masking, and it was heavy for me. I had a lot of friends look at me and see, oh, you're so intelligent and you're so articulate. And so there was this kind of person that I showed up as, but I wasn't capable of sharing the whole me. I wasn't capable of sharing all of me. And, it's funny. And I know I've told another friend from my ARC season the same thing. I said, it's interesting. I actually joined the coaching group so that I could become better at pretending to be neurotypical. But what I walked away with was being proud of and grateful for my neurodiversity, and being able to actually show up in my life as the whole me. And I've noticed that it's not just with these amazing people that I'm friends with, or, growing through the group and talking to everyone, but even with, my neurotypical friends, like out in I say real life because we do this all on Zoom, right?
That is real life these days, though.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, nowadays, yeah. But it's, even with people that I did have to mask with before, I'm not doing that as much, and I'm being me. And so I'm super grateful for that. And, I wish this for everyone. I wish this for everyone with ADHD. I want them to experience what it's like to have a community and a tribe. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. And, and whether or not, for people listening, if you're able to join our coaching groups, please come into our Facebook community. Community is such, I've been saying on the podcast for, since the beginning that we're more than just a podcast, we're a community. And those aren't just words. That feeling of connection and being fully seen and understood. That's really what to me, what ADHD Rewired is all about. It's about getting together, having a growth mindset, like working on stuff, struggling together, supporting each other, and getting back up together, and knowing that it's, you know, it's just not about how do we not fall down. It's about, all right, we're going to fall down. We're going to learn how to do all this amazing planning, and then we're going to forget to do all the amazing planning, right? Like, this is welcome to ADHD, but we're going to get back up. And we know that just because, you know, we slip doesn't mean we're broken, because we're not broken. You know, we may have our struggles. There might be things that are more challenging for us, but none of these things that are more challenging do we have to do alone. Right. And just so whether you're new listening to this podcast, whether you're not in any part of our community, just know that you are not alone. And there are so many people that you can connect to here, who get you, who really get you. And there's really nothing, I think, more special, than that. And in a world that just doesn't, sometimes I don't get, and I think that a lot of people don't get. So just through all of you are here and you're listening. Since we're on a Jessica binge, let's go to our last Jessica here, Jessica Stillwell, who I am so happy to see you. It's been too long since we've talked, and I hope that you are doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. Yeah, I don't know. Just life gets busy, I guess. But when I saw this, I knew I had to join.
So you've been sort of in the community for quite some time. You've been on the podcast. You helped to create a scholarship a while back, for coaching group members. So you've been a really integral part of the community for many, many years.
Yeah.
So I don't know what has it been since you've been around for a long time. What's that been like for you? What's ADHD Rewired kind of, what is it to you then and now?
So I think I started listening to the podcast definitely when you were first starting out. I think it was probably about maybe 5 years ago or so. You had only done maybe under 50 episodes at that time, but you had just started your coaching group. And I know a couple of, every time I was just getting so much out of the podcast. The interviews that you were doing were so insightful. You were talking about real things, which was really enlightening for me. So, and the idea of having a whole group of people that were just like me was really exciting. So, so I joined your accountability. So I called you to join the accountability group for the first time. And so for me, the podcast was really just the introduction to this whole other community that we all have available. The accountability group was, I've done it 2.5 times, kind of. And every single time I've been in it, it's been completely life changing. And, so, it's so valuable just to have people that are just like you, who understand what you're going through. You don't have to try to justify what you're doing and thinking. You can just completely be yourself, and they'll support you and understand it and explain why it's not awful, which is the first time it's ever happened. So, I had to start the scholarship fund because I knew that I had the opportunity at the time to do the accountability group. And a lot of other people who are just like us are not always in that situation. So I wanted to make sure that at least, we could start something that could benefit others that need some help with getting those resources and support.
Well, I've been eternally grateful for that, because it was such a profoundly generous gift that you gave to pay it forward. So thank you for that. And just one quick question for you, because I know this was something that you were seem to be struggling with for a long time. How's that inbox?
Well, believe it or not, it's not the worst. So
let's all celebrate it not being the worst. That is worth celebrating.
It's not the worst. I will say that it's not the worst. So that's a big win.
Awesome. That can be a win in a lot of areas for I think all of our lives. So
I will say
Jessica.
the one thing that I've been consistent with though is that my sleep is always number one for me, and that makes such a huge difference. And I will say that to anybody listening on this podcast, sleep is number one. You resisted that so fervently when, oh my God, because you were so struggling and you're like, oh, you have no working memory. And you're like, well, how much sleep do you get? You're like, well, like 3 to 4 hours a night. And I'm like, that's batshit crazy. And you're like, no, it doesn't affect me that much. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I kept on it. And you kind of just surrendered. Mm-hmm. It took an entire, I think it took like 8 or 9 weeks to convince me that, this is actually a bad thing to not get much sleep. And then lo and behold, start getting more sleep and my brain starts working again. Who knew?
It's, one of those moments that I'll always remember where you just kind of said, fine, I'll get to sleep.
I was so angry. But it was worth it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. All right. I think we're fresh out of Jessica's. So let's now go to Andrea.
Hi, everyone. I am the definition of green in this group. I'm like right out of the gate. About a week or so ago, I joined the Facebook group and I was listening to a couple of podcasts. On the other hand, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 9. Like I full blown identify, like I was the hyperactive little boy in the room. No, worse, right? Like I was that kid. So I couldn't believe that when I found out that this community existed, I was so, I want to curse, but I'm not going to do it. I was so in the dark.
We don't mind.
Like, what the hell? Like, how is that possible? I mean, it's just crazy to me. And like, even listening to everyone here, like you guys have all been talking for years, or you just found out. I feel like I was like birthed into like, there's my computer telling me what time it is, but
it's very helpful.
It is very helpful. I'm almost lost for words. I'm so honored to be a part of this, like even this podcast interaction right now. It's just a testament to how incredibly welcoming and warm you are and inviting of absolutely everybody in this community. And I don't know you yet, but I thank you already. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like in the last just like couple weeks, I've realized more things about myself that aren't even like, I just thought I was messed up. And I've seen plenty of professionals, but like, I feel like nobody's talked to me like a person. Everybody's just trying to fix pieces and parts and, oh, okay, well, let's turn this dial over here. And there's no, I don't know. I've never felt like so comfortable and so validated. And maybe me crying over watching all of the YouTube videos and listening to the podcasts is because I'm sleep deprived and I should probably get to bed. But I can't even express how thankful I am for finding this group. And I think it's also awesome because here you are, 300 episodes, 6 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And I'm brand new. And I think that that's such a great sign of a like really amazing, thriving community. And I'm like going through the Zoom and I'm like, I want to see what everyone looks like. They're all people. I don't know. Now I'm starting to sound a little crazy and go on a rant. And
Not at all. You are sounding like all of us. Andrew, we are so happy to have you here.
For including me.
Of course. We are so happy that you are here and part of the community. We really appreciate you being here. All right, let's go next to, we'll go to Pat.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I am also part of ARC-19, the most recent batch of the accountability group. And I came in a bit of a weird state, and I had done, a couple of coaching sessions for people who listen to the podcast and things. And I always had a bit of a weird state because I had been assessed by a psychologist and deemed not to have ADHD. Basically, any challenges I faced were not severe enough to warrant a diagnosis. And this is from a psychologist. She was very thorough. I respected her opinion. But I still really felt like this is a tribe that I fit very well with. So I come into this trying to think of myself as neurodiverse for sure, and possibly having ADHD. If there was a diagnosis for ADHD light, or there was a spectrum, I would probably go for that less severe, status. And being in the state that I was, having really, really high levels of anxiety, high levels of perfectionism, I still got such huge growth and learning out of being part of the accountability group, and finding this is probably one of the best communities that I've been a part of to help understand yourself through hearing about the struggles of other people, and through giving advice to people, which you realize a week later really should apply to you as well. And yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but I think even if you are unsure where you fit, whether you have a diagnosis, whether you needed a diagnosis to change your perspective of yourself, I highly encourage people to consider being part of the group and think about yourself as neurodiverse. And just so thankful to Eric for all of the work that you've done by opening this up to people, by getting people, and especially adults, to think about it.
Thank you so much, Pat. All right, let's go to, we'll go to Gail. I want to just check to see if Jessica has found her ukulele, though. Or she's gotten completely distracted and forgot that she was looking for her ukulele. And now she found the ukulele. She's, we can confidently say she's not like organizing her spice cabinet, which is, a risk from leaving the point where you were working and like, oh, those look like they need to be rearranged. So let's do this. Well, Jessica, are you ready to do your song? We can do that and then take a break and then we'll come back.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Let's do it. All
right. So I have one request though. If you can hold it in your working memory.
Okay.
What is it? At the end of your song, I want you to transition into the break. So just say something like, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
I will try to remember that. Okay, cool. So it's been a while since I played this song, but it's still really meaningful to me, and I'm getting emotional just practicing it again. But I have the transcription up. The actual sheet music is attached to my video. So if anybody wants to play this themselves, if you go to Try Different, the Fish song on my YouTube channel, you can actually link to the same music that I'm about to play from right now.
Awesome.
So this song is really important to me because it's basically the journey that I had learning to understand my brain and realizing I wasn't alone. So this is Try Different, the Fish song. It's based on the Einstein quote, or attributed to Einstein quote, that what is it? Everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing it's stupid. I feel like that explains a lot of what neurodiverse brains deal with. Just feeling really dumb because we don't work the way that other people do. So this is my tribute to that.
Awesome. Jessica McCabe. Thanks.
Alone I was a fish trying to climb a tree,
feeling stupid and discouraged by all the monkeys looking down at me. No one said they were above me, but I could see. And it only proved how easy climbing trees should be. But no matter what I tried, it hurt my fins to climb 2 branches back for each one up, falling farther behind. Till one day back at the bottom, I turned from the tree, and for the first time saw the ocean and a fish like me. That was Eric. Hi. And the fish said, hey, you, it's totally true. We fish aren't great at climbing, but that doesn't mean we aren't great at swimming, jumping, diving. The world is full of fish like us, once climbing to fit in. But potential turns successful when we learn how to swim. So when you get discouraged, try different, try again. 'Cause failing might just mean you're trying to climb instead of swim. I looked down at my fins and saw the fish was right. I wasn't built the same, and maybe that's alright. So I took a breath, jumped in, and trying to swim. And when I floundered, other fish helped me learn to use my fins. And you showed me you do. It's totally true. We fish aren't great at climbing, but that doesn't mean we aren't great at swimming, jumping, diving. The world is full of fish like us, once climbing to fit in. But potential turns successful when we learn how to swim. So when you get discouraged, try different, try again. 'Cause failing might just mean you're trying to climb instead of swim. When I looked back, that tree was tiny. I had come so far, and the fish were all amazing, though some still had their scars. And most of us were happier than we thought we'd ever be. Turns out the ocean's more exciting than any tree. The world likes to convince us that we should all climb trees. So sometimes fish don't realize how awesome fish can be. So next time you see someone at the bottom of a tree, pass along this message from those fish and me. Be the fish that says, hey, you, it's totally true. We fish aren't great at climbing, but that doesn't mean we aren't great at swimming, jumping, flying. The world is full of fish like us, once climbing to fit in. But potential turns successful when we learn how to swim. So when you get discouraged, try different, try again. 'Cause failing might just mean you're trying to climb instead of swim. It's okay if you don't know how to climb. Go out and swim. And with that, we'll take a short break.
This podcast is brought to you by patrons over at patreon.com/ADHD Rewired. I want to thank all of our patrons who help make this podcast possible with your contributions. I appreciate all of you who are listening who can financially support this podcast. I want to welcome our newest patron, Rosa H., who joined at the $25 a month level and joined us for last week's group coaching call. Thank you so much for your support. If you can't give financially, consider leaving a rating and review on your podcast provider or share a podcast episode to your favorite social group. All of your support is appreciated. For those who can give at the $25 a month level, you can join our monthly coaching call. It may even be helpful to think about this is if you want to participate in a monthly coaching call with me, it only costs $25 a month to do so, and you do so by becoming a patron. We do welcome all levels and all members of patron contribution. Our next group coaching call will be on Tuesday, May 26th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Consider becoming a member where you can join our monthly call at $25 a month, or just give a few dollars, whatever you can. If you enjoy this podcast, if you get value from the podcast, our community, and everything else we do, become a patron. To become a patron, go to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Patreon is Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thanks. This week on Hacking Your ADHD, Will is going to drop the episode he meant to drop last week on Hacking Your ADHD, but he'll do it for real this time. The episode is Cleaning House. On this episode, Will looks at why some people keep their entire house clean and others, it turns into a project. Check out Hacking Your ADHD with Will Curb every Monday, except last Monday. Join Will as he explores ways you can work with your ADHD brain to do more of the things that you want to do, like clean your house. Subscribe to these short, mindful ways to hack your ADHD. Go to hackyyouradhd.com for show notes and to subscribe. And every Friday, check out ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan. At ADHD Essentials, they help families develop the skills and knowledge needed to better manage ADHD. Go to ADHDessentials.com to learn more. Both Hacking Your ADHD and ADHD Essentials are both part of the ADHD Rewired podcast network, available to everyone, everywhere you consume podcasts. And don't forget to mark your calendars to join us for our next live Q&A. Join me, Brendan Mahan from ADHD Essentials, and Will Curb from Hacking Your ADHD as we work to answer your questions live. We do this every second Tuesday of the month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern for an hour of live Q&A. When you are registered, you can ask your questions. Register for free at ADHDrewired.com/events. That's ADHDrewired.com/events. Our next live Q&A is Tuesday, May 12th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. That's not this Tuesday. That's not today, but that is next week. We will hope to see you there. And we are back. All right. We got about 20 minutes. Okay. All right. I think we were going to go to Gail. Gail, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
So much to say, so little time. Let me start somewhere. The last person that spoke had early diagnosis, which I always say I did not have early diagnosis. I was diagnosed at age 58, almost 2 years ago. But Green Andrea is still like me. No information other than getting the diagnosis. So early diagnosis doesn't necessarily help that much, or maybe it helps in elementary school, when the special accommodations they give you in school might help somewhat. But it's so hard to believe that it's still not known. Like it's a big foreign thing. It's wild. I can't tell you how many years and how much money I spent going to therapists, and not just, hey, can you help me buy like 5 years with this one, 10 years with that one, coaching groups, coaches, and none of these professionals could ever say, Gail, you have ADHD. Let's get you some help for that. It wasn't until I met someone that facilitated a meditation group I had started joining, and she was an adult ADHD coach. And I was floored that actually existed. I'd heard of ADD. Some people threw it around towards me, or I'd throw it around towards myself as a joke. Yeah, I have ADD. not knowing much about it other than, you're distracted. So all these things I struggled with my entire life were due to the ADHD and all the symptoms and the brain wiring. I found, once I met that one coach that facilitated the meditation group, the floodgates opened. And like many of you said already, what can I get my hands on to watch, to read, to look at? I don't remember exactly. I think, I know I found Jessica McCabe early, and Jessica, you're just amazing. And I share your videos with my brother, my sister-in-law, the little kids that recently were diagnosed, my niece and nephew. And I found podcasts for the first time. So Googled ADHD podcast. I found Eric, started listening, tried to get into the groups for a while. Finally, I'm a recent graduate just now in ARC 19, which was just such an incredible experience. And it was still worth the wait that I couldn't get in either 1 or 2 seasons ago, because I just fell in love with everyone in our group. I mean, it's a new family. I'm not even noticing, we're going through this for your 6-year anniversary during the coronavirus, and the amazing support. I mean, our last day of the 10 weeks was the Friday that, at least in my area, everything became like closed. New York City closed down, no more restaurants, no more bars, don't go out. And I was like, it was just such an emotional time, but we had each other. It was just really amazing to have this community that day and during this time, because the community that Eric has created and developed there's like support available 24 hours a day, pretty much. There's rooms to go into like these where you could just chat with someone for support, or a study hall, or in ARC, ADHD Rewired coaching groups, I learned so much, and it's a lot. You get so much. You get a lot of information, a lot of tools, a lot of help with it. It's still enough of a lot that I'm going to redo the course with a couple of my, I'm going to do it probably next year at the same time, because I like the season that we did, but also doing some little study groups with some of the members in ARC 19 to just reinforce the material and learn it more and practice more. So I thank you. It's been so amazing and wonderful. And I feel so connected, even though I'm alone in my place here, like so many of us.
Yeah. I think especially right now, this feeling of being alone but connected is, we recently been doing some, these kind of open mics on Zoom, and, Gail, you've come to that. It's been lots of fun. So it's, you got your bongos,
the babies.
So thank you for being a part of the community, and I appreciate you. So thanks.
Great place. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's go to MJ, because you had a guitar in your hand, and I was like, "Ooh, did you write a song just for this occasion?" MJ, you shouldn't have.
No, I did not. But maybe I could have. I've had the time. So hello, everybody.
Hello, MJ.
Hello. Oh, this is so fun.
So tell us about how you kind of stumbled into this community, because you've been kind of everywhere lately.
Yeah, and most of my time is just kind of at my desk now because I'm not at work, probably like many of us. So basically how I found you was when I was doing some research about ADHD. Well, my mic is really low and I can't hear myself. Hello. Toast and jam, green eggs and ham. There we go. Yeah, so I was doing some research on ADHD because my hubby, who is diagnosed ADHD, had said, "Hey, I think you have ADHD." And of course, me being me and just my general upbringing, I was like, no, I'm just lazy. Like, I just forget to do stuff. And so as I kind of dove into the research, I found Jessica McCabe's channel, Fangirling. And then from there, found Brendan's Wall of Awful. And then from there, I was like, what's this ADHD Rewired podcast network? And then I found you. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon your podcast. And I'm an avid listener of podcasts to begin with. So this was just another, I guess, tool that I could add to my toolbox to sort of figure out how to cope with how I was. And so last year when I did pursue a diagnosis, then I got diagnosed and I started my meds. And after I found this group in particular, like I haven't taken part in any of the coaching groups, but just seeing everybody's stories in the Facebook community and listening to the podcasts of people's stories is just like, wow, I don't feel so alone in how I have felt about myself. And I've always really struggled to accept that I'm a little bit different, and especially in my particular community. And it's okay, and it's cool, and it's fun to be quirky and into a ton of different things that keep me occupied for the better, I guess. And yeah, just being here with everybody and being just part of a group that is so like-minded it has been really, really great. So thanks for including me. And it's really cool and fun to see everybody here and all the different faces. And yeah.
And thanks, MJ.
Yeah.
And thanks for being one of our top level patrons as well. No problem. You should tell people, on our last monthly group coaching call for patrons, how many people were there?
2, 3.
Yeah. Yes. So become a patron. All right.
It's fun.
It is. It's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, MJ. All right. Let's go to Daniel.
So my story, I actually have no idea how I found your podcast. I was just thinking about that, and everyone else seemed to remember, and I'm sitting here like, I have no idea how that happened. I was in graduate school, really struggling. It was just kind of going downhill, and ended up was like, I think this is something different than just like me not trying hard enough. I was like, I'd gone through 4 years of engineering school. I'd been out in industry and I'd had problems, but it was always like this. It was like the swan effect, like looks calm and serene on the surface and paddling madly away underneath was basically my life. And so ended up getting diagnosed and started like, I need to find out more about this because I knew nothing and like really knew nothing. And ended up stumbled onto the podcast and was just like, this is a lot of information that I've never seen before. This is all like, wow, I relate to all this. And ended up, I was finally like finishing up graduate school, and finally I was in the coaching. I was like, Eric had said something about the coaching groups, and I was like, I should try that. And I was like, just like literally at that moment was just like stray voltage running through my head. And I was like, yeah, I'll go and sign up for the coaching groups. Ended up, and it really helped a lot. I went from really like not knowing how to plan anything. I remembered there was a moment when my boss, when I first started working, asked me like, so when are you going to be doing, what are you doing like in the next month? Like, I want to plan something there. I was like, people plan stuff out like months ahead of time. And we had that moment and that should have probably clued me in that was like, that I was not all kind of like, or was a little different than everyone else. Yeah, just being a part of the coaching groups really helped to kind of know like, oh yeah. And mostly like a lot of other people have said, it was knowing that I was not alone. I suddenly went from being like, it was in graduate school where a lot of people struggled with mental health stuff. And a lot of people were very open about it, but I didn't meet a lot of people who talked openly about ADHD if they had it. And suddenly I go to this podcast and go to the coaching group, and suddenly there's like these stories. I've heard them all before. Like, this is my life. Like, this is mastermind sessions where I was like, that's exactly how things went for me. And is struggling with perfectionism. I'm still struggling with it, but doing a lot better than I was beforehand. And yeah, it was just one of those things that just made a huge difference, just finding the community and finding everyone there. going to Chad. I ended up, because of all this, going to Chad, where I met Eric. He's taller than he appears in person. I don't know why I thought Eric was shorter. That was the one thing that I saw was like when I first saw Eric was, oh, he's taller than I expected. Yeah, it just made a huge difference though, meeting everyone. And actually, it was like a really great group, but everyone was super friendly and like, oh yeah, come on, we got to go and we're all going to go do this. It was like, this is suddenly like a bunch of people who really had a struggle that I'd been kind of silently sitting there with. And it was, yeah, just finding the videos, finding out, the more I found out, the more I was like, oh, there's actually like, this is a problem for me. Oh, I never thought about it that way. I just thought I wasn't trying hard enough. Oh, okay. Yeah, it just made a big difference finding all that.
Thanks, Daniel. Let's go to Emily. Hey, Emily.
Aloha.
Aloha. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And always wanted to express my gratitude, which was a shock. So I have a combination of the story of the coming into the ADHD. It's almost like a rite of passage at this point, huh? So I was diagnosed at 50 and was a shock to the system because I never went to a therapist in my life, skipped grades. Everything was wonderful. I teach math for a living. So, whatever I'd heard about ADHD was not in my atmosphere. Yet when I took online tests, because I always considered myself chronically disorganized, 9 out of 10 questions, I would say yes, but I was like, nah, moving on. Finally, I went to a therapist because I was very depressed and I almost lost my job because I couldn't keep up with email. And I was wondering, my God, I can do all these things, but why can't I do simple things?
It's amazing how many heads are just sort of nodding when you just say, I almost lost my job because I couldn't keep up with email.
I hate it so much still, but still, I've made my kind of peace with it. Pseudo. Anyway, so, and then same thing, came across Jessica McCabe's channel, which is awesome. And that's where I saw you when you did that 2-day how to get your shit together videos. And that's when I saw you and I was like,
Jessica's like, there's no way we would have called it that. I'm a family friendly channel.
No, I'm thinking I should have called it that. That was great.
But I was kind of like, I don't know about this dude, but I'm desperate. So out of desperation, because I'd never even listened to a podcast. You were my first podcast ever, Eric.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. And a lot of the stuff you did made sense, but I was still like, nah, that's not for me, but I'm desperate to get my shit together. So I joined the accountability group, not very hopeful, but I was still hoping. And it worked out way better, although it's not a miracle. It's not like you come out of there and you're completely healed and nothing. But I was thinking today, like, what would I be doing right now if it wasn't for the accountability group? I would be the freaking hottest mess you ever saw, and still be running around my house, like freaking out, all the doors open, all the cabinets open, getting, being busy, but getting nothing done, and not realizing, that routines, which was a dirty word, I had to embrace. So, and I thank you for that, because that was something that I never thought that I would ever be able to adopt and actually like. I used to have a bumper sticker that said, there's nothing more inspirational than the last minute. But today I was also thinking that one thing that I have been able to do also because of it and actually deepen it is my faith in chaos, which was a great line out of the movie Pi that I always kind of really related to. And I was just thinking about all this thing and I always have the faith in chaos. So the universe brought you to me, and I'm very grateful for both you and Jessica.
Thanks, Emily. So just quick show of hands. How many of you is ADHD Rewired the first podcast you ever listened to? Daniel. Okay. I was like, I don't want Emily to feel alone.
I don't care. I've been alone. Okay.
Thanks, Emily. All right.
I just want to point out that Blake just put in the chat that How to ADHD is the gateway drug to ADHD Rewired.
And then ADHD Rewired, the podcast, is the gateway drug to the coaching groups.
Yeah. No, this is all just a funnel.
And wouldn't it be amazing if this was all something we planned?
Oh, no, you're going to start conspiracy theories, Eric.
All right, let's go to Mamata, and then I think that's going to be about all the time we have. Hey, Mamata.
Okay, hi, everybody. And hi, Jessica McCabe. I think this is so cool that I'm actually like on the same thing as you. But I don't really know exactly, I don't know how I found out about ADHD Rewired, because I know that I stumbled across your videos like maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I first figured out that I had it, but I just never actually like dove into it until maybe a year ago. But I guess the one thing that out of so many things that I could pick, the main significant thing that I gained from this community was like realizing what it actually felt like to connect with people. Because I feel like I was so oblivious to the fact that I wasn't connecting with people. I didn't understand, like, I didn't know that I was struggling either. Like, a lot of my struggles are now recently catching up to me after being in group and talking to people that think like me, and hearing people openly share their struggles. And then I'm like, oh, so that's what struggling looks like. That's not what's supposed to happen, I guess. So now it's like, now I really understand what it means to communicate with people. I feel like I've gotten used to people not understanding my struggles, so I don't really voice them because I know that internally, like, it's something I have to figure out. But now I'm not satisfied with the scraps anymore that I have to take from interacting with neurotypical people, because I know what it feels like to, I don't know, actually connect with people. And that's what I really appreciate about the group. So thank you guys for sharing and just for being a part of this community. Thank you, Eric, for putting it all together, and Jessica, and just everyone. Like, it's amazing.
Thank you so much, Mamata.
Yeah, of course.
I also want to, because we're just here at the last minute here, just recognize Barb, who's in the other room beyond 6 feet of distancing. There she is. Barb has been such an amazing help. It's really amazing that you've only been here since the beginning of January, right? Isn't that where you came on?
October.
See, if it weren't for her. So, one of the things I actually wanted to ask you about, maybe you can share a little bit about, is I think one of, besides, dealing with all of my ADHD-ness, the challenging things about this job for you has been reading all the Facebook applications, because people share their story. And maybe you can just speak for just a minute about what that's been like for you, getting to know this community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a surprise. I knew I had to learn a lot of different software and platforms. And then when you fill out an application for a Facebook to get in the Facebook community, some people are brief, and a lot of people are very, pages of their story, and really, really affected me. So I actually told Eric we have to set aside time so I can debrief and just kind of talk about it, because it was a lot to kind of hold in. The community is just so important to all of these people, and it's wonderful to hear just about their journey, and their journey brought them here. Thanks,
Barb.
You bet.
All right. Well, I think we are here at the end. We spent the last hour and almost a half hearing from many voices from the community. Some voices you've never heard before, others you have. And for those of you who have had the experience as of late getting on a really bad Zoom meeting because everyone is unmuted, I just wanted to share with you what that actually sounds like here with all these people with ADHD Rewired. So I'm going to unmute all for just a moment, and this is how we're going to end this one. So thank you all for being here.
Oh my God.
Oh, my. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Just hear me.
Oh, yeah.
Hear you. You hear me.
Mic on?
This is what my brain sounds
The
like.
mic is on.
Yes. I need it on his
Yay, this is so exciting.
Jessica's playing
It
us
should
out.
happen in every classroom, just like a moment where the teacher's like, everybody make noise.
Everybody scream.
My fifth grade classroom again.
Well done. Well done.
Well, thank you everybody for being here.
I just wanted to double down on what you said about connecting online as a community, because ADHD people and these communities, How to ADHD and ADHD Rewired, are the best at connecting online. I can't tell you how many friends and family have been like blown away by the stories that I have.
Thank you for being a part of that, Blake, and everybody. So be well, keep 6 feet apart, wash your hands, keep your sanity, have fun, make jokes, and keep listening to the podcast. Thank you, everybody. We'll do this again at like year 10.
Are you committing? Are you committing to 10 years, Eric?
Oh, it's I don't see myself slowing down anytime soon, because as far as having conversations, I don't think it's possible to get bored having conversations with people with ADHD. Because I would not keep doing this if I felt bored for a moment. And I feel so fortunate that this is my job. Like, how did I get to be so lucky? I get to talk to all these weirdos, and it's fantastic. It's just, I love being a part of this community and being just a member of it. And I don't always have my shit together either. And when I need the support, you guys have supported me as well. And it feels, there's a lot of love that I feel in this community. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Eric.
I'm going to go take a brain break, and I'll see you guys around. Bye, everyone. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find summaries and additional resources for each episode. You can apply to our free and secret Facebook community. You can learn more about ADHD Rewired's intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups, and sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. It's all at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click the Patreon button. If you're a regular listener and you're still listening to my voice, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron through our Patreon page. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to listeners, but it is not free to produce. And patrons get really cool perks. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHDrewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. You can also subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube. And you can subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube and see select interviews and some other videos I've posted. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends and your family and your clients, as well as your coaches, therapists, and doctors. And if you're a coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader, and you would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at my website, ADHDrewired.com. And if you're a member of CHAD or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this podcast. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. You know, you might be the person that turns somebody on to a podcast for the very first time. And if you really love this episode, please consider hitting share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I count on you to help me spread the message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and to help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or any other podcast app that accepts ratings and reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe on this podcast on your podcast app so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Not sure where to start? In no particular order, check out Atomic Habits by James Clear, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk, 10% Happier, and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. These are both by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions and Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Vaden. The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. Do you have trouble asking for help? Listen to The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's one of the best produced audiobooks I've ever heard. If you're looking for something a little bit more, say, magical, I unexpectedly fell in love with the Harry Potter series. And I don't usually listen to those kinds of books, and I loved it. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus yet, check out Brene Brown's books, starting with The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, The Power of Vulnerability, and if you're an entrepreneur or leader in any capacity, check out her 2018 book, Dare to Lead. And Brene still is my most wanted guest, so if you know Brene, and you would be so kind to make that connection for me, I would be really, really grateful. You know who else I would like to have on the show? You. Click the podcast tab at ADHDrewired.com and then click the Be a Guest button at the top of that page and schedule a 15-minute pre-interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep connecting. Self-care is not selfish, and no matter what gets done or doesn't get done, at the end of the day, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.